Welcome to What If We Can Change It All, the podcast.
A podcast created by Movement.Medicine.
My name is Shadisa.
And my name is Janina.
We believe that we have the power and therefore we can change it all.
This podcast is all about reclaiming your power.
Welcome. This is our fifth episode. Good to have you back. And today we're here with Ashley Frost, and I met Ashley I think around 3 years ago, and really felt connected to how you are living and the way you see life. And that back then you were still studying and doing a lot and gathering a lot of knowledge, but and seeing you now and actually also being able to be on an event with you and see your magic there was beautiful to see, or to see your whole growth and your whole path unfolding and see where you're at right now. I don't want to say too much about what you're doing. I will leave that up to you. But Ashley for sure is truly inspiring, very much supporting women. I will leave it like that, I think. You can blow us away with all that you do.
Thank you so much, ladies. The story is likewise of also seeing everyone's shift and progress and how we've gone from these women who are not so sure of themselves to then blossoming, and I really see that in both of you and also myself and so many people in our sphere. So thank you for having me here. And yes, my name's Ashley Frost. I'm an anger, emotional release coach, therapist, whatever you want to throw in there, practitioner. I have been working with emotional release for 3 years now. Around the time when I met Sharissa and Janine, I just about was quitting my corporate job, where I was working as a project manager and doing all the things I thought I needed to do. And in reality, I had zero understanding of what the hell emotions were, what kind of impact they were having on myself, my behavior, my thoughts, my unconscious behaviors especially. And through a very series of very intense events in 2020, I started my emotional release training, and obviously that's been a huge initiation, many dark nights of the soul. I'd say that yes, I actually can proudly say I can take on that title of I feel like I am inspiring at certain points, because I feel like I'm dying and being rebirthed every single day. And there's a certain intensity with that, and there's a certain, I don't know if I can call it enjoyment, but there's an element of life is just so beautiful, and even in the heaviness and the darkness. And my biggest journey was down into the darkness and into the emotion of anger, and that's really where I've come to today. So making friends with the intensity, making friends with these emotions that we really push away, anger, fear, jealousy, and integrating them into a place where we can really come into whole and learn a lot of the lessons that come with it. So that's what I'm here doing at the moment. Trying to introduce people, in particular women, into the magic and the power of this emotion that is very much scary for a lot of us and for society as well. So thank you for having me.
And I think this is so relatable for us, but I can imagine also for the listeners, we're so used to suppressing our emotions, not feeling them, especially the heavy and bad ones, right? We're just pushing them away and just try to be happy, although there's all this intensity bubbling up in our bodies. And at some point, you just need to listen, actually. I think this is how most people start doing more emotional work and emotional releases, because the body becomes painful, there's mental health issues coming, there's so much connected to emotions, and mostly we don't know or are not aware about it. And I think it's super powerful work to do.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I have so many people coming to me who are coming from New Age spirituality, which is essentially always looking at the love and light, and always looking at raise your vibration, raise your frequency, be grateful, blah blah. It's going up. And then people are not really looking at the shit at their feet, which is fertilizer. It's good stuff down there. But it's I notice a shift coming now where people are actually no, I know I need to integrate also my shadow, also the things that I'm not going to call them bad, I'm going to call them uncomfortable emotions. because already to put a subjective definition, it's like so many times people are like, yeah, like this feels good. I'm like, what does good mean? Like, define that for me. Like, what does bad mean? It's like, actually you're just putting a judgment on the emotion, which is already sending it to the shadow. Like, already making it something that's not accessible, because we're judging ourselves for experiencing it, for having it. It's like emotional releases goes hand in hand so much with shadow work as well. It's really like unpicking what's lurking in the background.
And I'm just curious, what made you go into like the emotional release world? What was your moment that you thought, I need to do this?
Yeah, so honestly, 2020, I mean, I pretty much know that I was mildly depressed since I was 12. When I was around 10, we moved from Germany back to England, and that was like my first big trauma. I really remember as like really being torn away from like my friends and the life I knew, and then kind of thrown back into a country where I was born but I didn't really feel as connected to. And I remember just always building up in my life, like then I would always try and like overcompensate by doing and being a perfectionist and like getting good grades and doing sports and going to parties and having jobs and blah blah blah, and like going on vacations and then going to university, and it was like perpetuating this cycle where I was just doing things because I thought that that's what I needed to do to be successful, to be happy. But it was also creating this like this pressure and this like anger inside of me that I didn't even know existed, of like how life was turning out. Like you're doing everything according to someone else's path, and then I wonder why like my body hurts, my shoulders hurt, I have stomach aches all the time, I have like acne and skin stuff going on all the time. And what was really the catalyst was 2020. I went through a pregnancy which I couldn't keep, and we had the pandemic, which is in itself bringing up so much rage because we're like our whole autonomy is taken away from us, and it perpetuated a cycle, to be honest, of behavior that I'm not proud of. And I realized that I was processing grief I didn't even know I was allowed to feel from a pregnancy, because you're told like, oh well, if you didn't give birth, like you have postpartum depression. It wasn't acknowledged really by my partner at the time that it was something that is worthy of grieving of. So then I acted out in behaviors that were like, clearly now I see a trauma response. And I had no way of like knowing that at the time. So I got like sent on this deep dive of like really wanting to understand how emotions are working us. Like I imagine like little puppets, like that aspect of like sometimes your emotions are really playing you. And the anger arose truly from just deep physical pain. I had a couple of instances of being in the hospital where I'm like in excruciating pain in my abdominals, thinking it's like my appendix is bursting, or that there's something wrong in my ovaries and things like this. And I was 5 days in the hospital, and they're like, yeah, we can't diagnose your pain, you have to go home. Like sometimes for 20% of people that's just the case. I'm like, how is that an acceptable response? Like, what the hell? And I went home from that hospital and had a session with my teacher, and we went into this point in my body, and it was blind rage at everything. So I love that your podcast is called like, what if we change it all? Because I was mad about it all. Like, the world, my family, my experiences, my body, like everything. And it was this culmination of like how depression also comes around. It's like this anger or this hatred or this annoyance that should be going externally is then being pointed inwards, and becomes this like self-hate that's eating away at the inside. And since having done this work, like my depression is gone, and my ability to regulate the emotions and really know that emotions are just passing through you. They are just trying to tell you something, and that's so liberating when you're really able to hold that in yourself, as well as then people, as well as like if it's your clients or your friends, or even like I'm home now with my family and there's like emotional dysregulation going on, and I'm like, oh, like this doesn't trigger me anymore. Like I can just witness it, and I allow this happening. I'm like, I can. Okay, welcome to inner peace. I was talking a lot then, sorry ladies.
No, it's all good. It's all good. No, I love what you're saying, and that you're also like giving this example about like being in the hospital and they doing like all these tests and not finding out what was wrong with you or what's going on with you, right? Because there comes the point that it's actually really good to balance like Western medicine, but also the medicine that our body actually already has and that we are actually denying ourselves to have a lot of the times. And just by expressing that and by showing like everyone that your emotions are just your emotions, but they're also so much more if you suppress them and you're not listening to them, because the body just needs to scream louder and louder and louder and louder, right? And I think that is a beautiful journey you went on. So I'm really happy that you shared this with us and the world.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, so I'm trained in NER emotional release, which is a form of body work and psychosomatics. So I love it because it's, for me and the people that we're training, it's like combining the mental aspect, like psychotherapy, but then the body work aspect, but then also the energetical side of things. I'm working with like ancestral and lineage and things like this. And you learn in this method that there's so many different points of the body, like pressure points, acupressure points, but areas that relate to different emotions.
Yeah.
And also because we work with dimensions, which is similar to the chakra system, that are like developing at different ages. So at different points of, like when I speak to some of my clients, it might be like, yeah, like I keep having a pain in my solar plexus, and it's like when I was 6, my parents divorced, and the solar plexus is all around like your autonomy and how you're connecting with the world. And if then suddenly your house is split and you're in 2 different homes and being told where to go at what times, that's having an imprint in that area. And with anger, this is just like what's completely, the more and more sessions I'm giving, like I've given hundreds of sessions now on people, and I'm just seeing the same patterns showing up again and again of different points of the body. Like the main areas that we're storing anger in particular, you'll find this on like the hips, like the hip flexors, the psoas muscle, which is also what in the end was my thing, where I thought my appendix, but it's actually the psoas that's running on the side of my abdominals. The solar plexus, the liver is like the huge area. In particular for people, the shoulders, like the trapezius. I rarely have found people who have soft trapeziuses, to be honest, in the modern world that we live in. Like everyone's got some level of tension now. Also the forearms, you can also feel a lot of tension in people if they're like really like holding back that suppression of like if the fists are clenching, like energetically, because obviously they're not clenching them. And the neck in particular, and the jaw. And so a lot of clients also coming with intense headaches because all of these areas are interconnected. You have tightness in one, you're going to feel it in other points. But in particular, the solar plexus. Like this is honestly, I'd say like 7 out of 10 sessions, this area is coming up. And it's always coming up in the same way, like a yellow sun, a yellow light. And I noticed that this is where a lot of people are really holding back their power, their inner truth or strength, whatever that's looking like, whether it's actually words that they're not speaking, or it's they're making themselves small in life, like in their workplace or in relationships. And this area is always like so suppressed, and it's really like wanting to come up. And the moment that we work through that aspect and this energy is allowed to flow, I'm having clients just having full Kundalini awakenings on the table, like full body, like tingling experiences, like that feeling like you have after orgasm almost. And that is what's really coming. I've noticed with anger that it's so similar to an orgasm, which is like sounds a little bit weird, but they actually build up in the same way. And then there's this like build up if you're doing it right. This is why like sometimes people I see doing group releases of anger, and I'm like like they're just like, here's a pillow, hit it. And they're like, it's not really how it works. Like, you know, you're like, here's a clitoris. Like, build up. And then there's like a beautiful release. And then there's this like moment of like clarity and calm and integration. And that's the magic that comes with anger, even if it's only happening in like an instance of feeling anger, or it's happening in full release you do with yourself. There's always this shift. And the energy is transformed into something that you can use more productively, like an idea, or clarity, or creativity, or feeling better in yourself, whatever it is that comes through. So I just noticed there's such a deeper nuance to this emotion that I didn't really know at the beginning. I thought it was just about clearing through trauma and clearing through heaviness, and actually on the other side of this, there's so much alchemy to the emotion as well.
Yeah, and I think the build up is so important. Like I've been like doing anger practices before and also have been guided before, and then coming to the event, which was like with hundreds, 200, I don't know,
250 people.
250 people, like a lot, and you guiding it, it was like such a big relief, and I felt like my whole body indeed was like tinkling and like this orgasmic relief, really, and it helped me really to see actually there's still a lot that needs to be processed. And now you sharing about the solar plexus, I can remember like the first session I did with you, which was, I think you were like in like finishing.
You were, like, my second session
yeah it was like very much.
I've definitely gotten better since then.
But it was very much in the beginning, and we didn't go into the whole anger whatever, but we did work on my solar plexus, and I can actually, now you were talking, I was like, actually I think it was yellow. And so it was interesting to like, I don't want to say I didn't connect to it, because I did connect to it like in other ways and but like going and kind of leave it, and then going through this like this big emotional release with so many people, and feeling that there was like so much from my past still holding on and still needed to be released. And it was a beautiful and intimate experience, although we were like with a lot of people, and that was beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, it's really beautiful to hear that. We're going to be doing another one of those in July in Berlin with 400 people.
Ooh.
So yeah, that's the thing. It's like, I know a lot of people are scared around doing big events with emotions, and they can be done badly. Like, I'm not saying that for sure be careful, because I know that for me, I see a lot of people offering certain things that I don't feel have fully yet. They're not fully embodying it yet. Like a couple of people I know doing anger things, and I'm like, but you're still really much the goody girl, or like people pleaser kind of person, and it's like I can't quite take it seriously yet. Not saying that like they won't ever be at that point. But it was really a huge thing at that event, because I really noticed just how important it is to like really go slow with the emotion, and to give yourself a break. If the emotion's not there, it's also okay. Like, I had a lot of people feeling in the past like, am I being a bad student, quote unquote, like, am I doing this right? And it's like, there's no right way to do emotional release. It's like, however your body is ready today, and whatever wishes to come up today is perfect for you. And that, like I always say to this could be one tear, that could be one huge sigh, and that's enough for you. And it could also be screaming for half an hour, like, it's everything in between. But we always have so much pressure on ourselves, I think, around like, how do I do everything so perfectly? Like, am I healing in the best way? Am I fitting my morning routine and my agenda? And am I doing all my journaling and blah, blah, blah? Like, am I doing everything perfectly? And sometimes we just also have to just be so imperfect and just see what the body wants and what it needs on that day.
Yeah, there's really this aim of wanting to be perfect, and even with like indeed with healing, and there is no perfect way at all.
And perfectionism is another source of like intense internal pressure, and that leads to intense internal rage. Like, I'd say like an example I work a lot with is also like, I have a lot of mothers who I work with who have kids, and that in itself is a whole topic, because you're also really having to put your children literally before you. So even though you know, like, I love my kids and I'm here to protect them, and you could even be like, I want to be a good wife, or I want to be a good employee, or I want to be a good. It's at some point your ego is like, but what about me? Like, I also want to have this space, and I deserve that. And I'm not saying that doing anger work means you're going to be like an egotistical maniac. Like, no, like, you still have your duties, you still got to look after your kids, but it's almost giving space for both those parts of you to exist. Like, yes, you can be a good mother, and you can still like to express your rage or feel selfish about certain things. Like, there's healthy ways to express that, not at your kids. But for a lot of us, we just don't even firstly acknowledge that that part of us exists, and that's where the like disconnect is happening, and this like misalignment. Like, you're not truly being in integrity with like what is actually going on inside of you. Bringing things into the light. It means that then they're coming up in healthy ways. Like, the amount of women I've worked with who now like are not reacting passive aggressively to their partner, because it's like, okay, like, what are you actually annoyed about? And they're like, yeah, like, I'm annoyed about this. It's like, cool, like, can you find a way to like work with that with yourself, where you deal with that topic, and it's probably not even that your partner's doing something that they need to be talked to about. It's like your own stuff. Like, especially like when you're PMSing, it's like even more so when you're just like, oh my god, stop breathing.
Stop breathing.
Knowing that there's an element of these reactions, this is all like triggers coming at you, and you're just, if you're reacting to them, then it's coming like from this like quick fire place, and that's where a lot of damage happens.
Yeah.
That's where a lot of disconnect happens in relationships, or you say something that you didn't actually mean. And what's coming with doing this kind of anger work is this ability to respond first. So you're like, yeah, of course it doesn't mean that you're going to be passive and you let things slide because, yeah, like I've integrated my anger. It's like, no, but I know that I'm responding in a way that's actually in alignment with like my values and who I want to be as a person, and the kind of impact I want to have in the world as well. Yeah, I love this shit.
I think, do you want to say
No,
something?
go first.
Okay.
Yeah, go first.
I think what's also very important is that what you shared about like triggers, right? Because mostly we see triggers as someone doing something to us.
Yeah.
And I mean, in some extent we can see it like this, I guess. But it's mostly actually about what happened in our lives, right? And what happened before, and that's why we get triggered. And I think that's so important because we are so used to just pointing fingers and saying that someone else is doing something wrong and is trying to harm us, but mostly that's not even the case actually.
Yeah.
And it's just like trigger against trigger.
Fully. And I mean, what's really underneath the trigger is normally either a need or a boundary.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's either like, you're not seeing me right now and that's making me feel sad, but instead of telling you that, I'm going to come up with a passive aggressive comment. Or actually, you've crossed my boundary, but I don't really know how to express that, so I'm going to withdraw. And that's like, because I'm so triggered, I can't deal with this, like in that kind of element. And it's like truly just trying to get to the core of like, what is really going on? Like, what's really the underlying thing? And I mean, oftentimes this is why you do work with a professional for certain elements. Like, in reality, I have a really bad business model because I don't want my clients to work with me for that long. I want them to get to a point of being able to like meet their emotions when they come up, inquire with them, feel them. Like, that's the crucial thing. It's like inquiry is fine, but like you have to feel.
Mm-hmm.
And then being able to process it and move on. And for a lot of my clients, we go through these cycles where they may be going through something intense, like a deeper level of something has come up and they need assistance. And then it's like after like 3 sessions or something, they're fine again. And then like after a year, the next level comes. And that's like how I love to work. Like, I don't want to fix people in on like, you must be on this like 8-week or this, because it's like, especially with the emotions, you can't forecast when people are ready for their session. And I'm actually super flexible in terms of if people need to reschedule, I would rather get that 2 hours back and then book a session at a time when it's suited to them. Mainly for onlines, because in person it's like a bit different because you have to book a studio. But normally for the online sessions, then I'm really just like, come here when you're ready. Sorry, wrote something outside. The anger is real, so I'm smashed plate, I think.
No, and I love that, and I also love what you're saying about like, it was a while back though, but like what you were saying about like actually suppressing the emotions, but also like everyone wanting to be like high vibes and unicorns and rainbows, and like also what you see in social media, and it's not only with like regular people or normal people, but also within like the spiritual community and coaches and stuff. Like how often we see things and it's actually just bypassing, right? It's just only what it is bypassing, but just seeing like, you need to be in a high frequency, you need to be in high vibration, you need to be this and that and this and that. But all what you're doing is bypassing everything else. So there's no way that you're actually in that frequency or that you're actually in that vibration. So no wonder that it is not working out for you, right? And I think that is something really important and something that also needs to be shared more. It's like, of course we know social media is not real, but it's also like the way that people in like the spiritual community and like people that are coaching and are doing this work are also like projecting it to the world. Because sometimes it needs to be a little dark before it gets better, and that's more than okay. That's more than healthy.
And can you find enjoyment actually in the dark?
Exactly.
That's the thing. Like, I've been absolutely like annihilating the book Existential Kink at the moment. It's so good. Have you guys read it?
No.
We're like, ooh, what is it?
Yeah, within like 3 chapters, I was like, this is shifting my life completely. Because it gave me a whole new perspective on, first of all, shadow work, but also in I think the title of it is like getting off on the things you don't like. Wait, my brain's not gonna be able to do this title, but basically enjoying the things that you don't like actually then gets you to things you do. So not just, okay, can I suffer through this darkness right now because I want to get back to the light? It's actually like things I'm manifesting into my life, whether it's like patterns, relationships, health, whatever it is, in some shape or form, your psyche is also enjoying it. Like, you are able to manifest everything you want, and sometimes that's the things that we think we don't want. So it's actually like, can you be like, okay, actually, like, this thing showed up, somehow my unconscious clearly wanted this, and I got it, can I enjoy that? And it's like removing the shame, removing the guilt, removing the like rejection of this dark pattern that you've manifested, and can you actually enjoy it? And then it like really retrains you into stepping into this level of pleasure around everything. This like means that there's not this, oh, good and bad, you're just like, oh, I can just enjoy it all. And then at some point, because our psyche wants to experience it all, it's like, well, wait a second, you're finding pleasure now in this pattern, so I want to give you the opposite of that, which is then, it's like the most reverse psychology thing you can ever do. It's so good. And yeah, it's yeah, I noticed that aspect with the like the new age spiritual and the people coaching. Like, I was in the USA this year for a month working with clients, and I had to shift my approach working with Americans, because they're also on another level of like not showing you what's really going on. Whereas like I feel like Europeans at a certain point where like, how are you? And you're okay. Yeah, like this is maybe not going so well or this, but like in the States, it's like, hey, how are you? Yeah, good. Okay, you? Yeah, good. Okay, bye. Like, what does good mean? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm great. I'm like, what does great mean? And this is in sessions, like in meditations. And then at some point it's like, yeah, but how does that feel in your body? And then they're like, oh, actually kind of like tight in my chest. I'm like, so do you feel some anxiousness? And they're like, oh, yeah, I guess so. I'm just like, yeah. So really interesting having to like shift your style between different cultures as well. Yeah.
It also...
But yeah, I refuse that word now. Like, I'm good. I'm like, well, I do not allow that in people's vocabulary. You know what I mean? It's like, what does that mean? It's so generic. It could be anything.
Yeah, literally. But it also shows how we are programmed, right? And how we are programmed to keep up this like picture perfect for ourselves, but also for the outside world. And I think when we start layer down and like build down our walls, we are actually able to show our true self. And mostly we're actually afraid, right? Because we're afraid to show a shadow part or a dark part or however you want to call it. But I think, well, for example, if I talk with a friend and someone is going through a, like, I don't know, to a heavy phase or to like something shadowy or I don't know, whatever, I actually find it's beautiful, right? But then when it comes to ourselves, we're like, oh, but I can't show this, and it's super interesting how we are programmed that somehow mostly we actually find it beautiful with someone else, or when someone cries, we're like, oh, actually it's okay, you're showing your emotions, but when we're self at this point, we're like, actually I don't want to show this, and there's like a lot of shame and a lot of guilt and a lot of anger and a lot of all of that. But it's actually beautiful to show the whole spectrum instead of just one part of yourself.
Yeah, and I fully get that fear that people would have. It's in many places it's not safe right now to show your true vulnerable self. It's like actually finding those containers of people right now who are able to hold you in the way that you need, like emotionally, physically, like friendships, community. Like, I'm really grateful because I mean I work with the emotional release team, and they're also my colleagues, but they're my friends, and like it feels like a dysfunctional family at times. Like knowing that you have this space of people that you can actually be your true self and not be rejected for it. That's what I noticed is like so healing in these kind of sessions that we're giving, because I'm not doing a lot. I'm just being a human being that's like, hey, like you're here with all of your shit, all your gunk, the beautiful, the boils, the warts, the like everything that's there, and I'm still here, unconditionally, non-judgmentally, just giving love. And that's so healing for a lot of people. Like the fact that we're also so deprived of things like touch and hugs. Like I had a session on the weekend that in the end we just ended, she was like, can you hug me? I was like, yes, of course. I was like, can I be on the table? And we just laid on the table for 10 minutes and just hugged each other. Because that's so missing for a lot of people. Like even if you've got family or friends, but how often do you actually embrace in a way that's not just like greeting each other, or it's this humanness. That's so beautiful, and I really see it like when I see, like you say, when you see people being human, it's just so beautiful. And that makes me lose not faith in humanity and people are brave enough to just be themselves.
Next question.
When there's a silence.
I have no idea where we are.
Oh, that's okay.
Can I ask you both a question?
Of course you can.
If you had to, like, rapid fire feel into like something you're repressing right now, what would come up?
Oh.
Sorry,
first
can you
thing
repeat
comes to
that for
mind.
me?
Well, is there something that you could identify that you're repressing right now, whether a word or emotion, a sensation, a thought? Like, what's the first thing that would come up?
I think I'm actually still repressing anger, to be completely honest.
Also in this moment?
I feel like I'm moving through this thing, and not sure if it's like now in this moment, but I know it's like somewhere in the back, so I feel it's like present. Literally. Oh, it's like somewhere in the back, right? So I know it's presence, like, but on a light side. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It does for me.
Thank you.
I think for me it's definitely shame. Yeah, definitely shame. And although I'm working on it, I still feel like sometimes, like even with my dog, right? Like shame is just an emotion that I don't like, and we're just not friends. But we're getting like more friendly with each other now, so that's good. But like even with my dog, and he's like barking, I'm like, the first thought is like, shut up, I'm ashamed now. Like, shut up, be quiet now. And I'm like, no, it's okay, just bark. It's all fine. Like, just let that shame be there. Like, you don't need to suppress it. It's all good, right? So it's definitely shame in like multiple ways turns up in my life, I guess.
Thank you for sharing. I feel like I'm suppressing, I don't even know how this is an emotion, but like trust in life. It's like been a big thing the last, maybe like safety or allowance of safety. Not sure what emotion that would be, but yeah. I always love these questions. It's actually more like
And I think it's also
what's going on in your heads.
exactly. And I think it's good, right? Because it also shows like even though you're in this whole anger release, even though we are like guiding people, it also means we're still human, right? It's like we still have our shit to work with, and that's totally okay. You don't have to be healed to like guide people. I think this can also be like a super misconception that once people are like coaching, holding sessions and that's there's like this way of that they have to be there and above everyone, and it's not about that at all. And I think it's also important to show that. And that's maybe also what's happening with the whole love and light area and the coaching and healing industry. It's like they're all like, not all, but there is like a group that's like placing themselves above, and they're all happy and grateful, and everything is always working out for them. And this can be true, and this is also a side, right? Because you're used to work with it, and you can regulate yourself faster and better, and So there is also a sense of truth in it. But then there's always your gun comes up. Always there will be like triggers and things, and this also needs to be acknowledged, I feel.
Yeah. There's a chapter in the book that I just talked about that's also going on about this, because we always think like, I should be this and then I can be happy.
Exactly.
I should be healthy, then I can be happy. I should have this amount of money, then I'll be happy. And there's such a deep practice of can I be deeply in pleasure and joy even without those things? Even in this moment, and that's such a I love it. This book is so good.
Can you share the name once more? Can you share the name once more?
I will. I'll send it to you so you can add it to the...
Yes.
Perfect.
And read it ourselves.
Yeah, please. Put it down.
I think we're slowly coming to an end. In my head, I'm like, we need to make this podcast episode way longer than the 40 minutes. But Anyways, as you know, we always end with a tip for our listeners. And what would be your tip?
Yeah, I mean, we actually alluded to this a little bit earlier. I think what I came up with was just that you really can't think your way into feeling. So I have a lot of clients who've done therapy like 4 years, 5 years, 10 years, and they do like one session and they're like, what did you put in my tea? Was there some kind of psychedelics? Like, how did I just experience all of that in one session and you didn't give me any form of drugs? And it's like 10 years worth of therapy can happen in one emotional release session, because what you're actually doing is, instead of just talking about a serious a situation or something that happened or how you felt, like,
No.
I guess I felt sad, and how did you feel then? I feel emotion is still stored in the body, and it's like an incomplete cycle that has happened. So something happens when you're like 6, I don't know this age is coming up today, but something happens when you're 6, and you felt sadness about something, but at some point that got cut off, whether it's by a parent telling you to stop crying, or you have being distracted by toys because your parents can't handle your intensity of your outbursts. They're like, here's TV, go watch TV. So you stop crying. And that's like a very small example. This can also happen with bigger traumas or examples of that, but this cycle didn't get to complete. And this cycle is actually sadness of maybe being left alone, maybe feeling like nobody was there for you, your mother wasn't there in that moment. And in the session is when you're really given this opportunity to let that emotion complete its process and then leave. That's what the release is. Yeah. And that's where you leave these sessions feeling like physically lighter, because your body is actually letting go. Like, you can have one release session, and I even had this last week on myself. I had like a point of tension in my back. I did a release session for it for like 5 minutes, focusing on what emotion was there and letting it come out. And then this knot, which really felt like it was like the size of like a tennis ball. And it was there all day, and I was rolling it all day, and nothing was working to get it out. And then I did this work, and then it was gone.
Yes, and this is so
like,
true.
It's ridiculous how quickly like people's faces can shift also from these sessions. Like, they get up off the table and like your face is actually different.
Yeah.
Like, when tension is released, the body stands differently. People hold themselves, and and that doesn't come from sitting and meditating and thinking. Like, it comes from somatically embodying it, which, I mean, you ladies know a lot about embodying. But that was for me the biggest lesson. Was like, I cannot think my way, and I can't read all the books and just sit and do vipassana and just do all the like positive affirmations. Like, I had to also incorporate the body. And,
and I think
invitation for people.
I think that's so important, because when we just work with, like, let's say the knot or the pain or whatever is coming up, we're just looking at the cause and
symptom.
The symptom. We're just looking at the symptom and not the cause, right? We never go to the root, so we're just treating all the symptoms we have, but then what's underneath there, and we forget that there's like a whole world there that we can explore. And I think it's a beautiful tip.
It's the mysterious world of the subconscious.
Yes.
I would say this joke to my clients. I'm like, if our subconscious could just communicate to us, then we wouldn't have to do this. Like, if you could send us an SMS like, hey, that point on your left shoulder is because of this memory and you need to feel this to release it. I'm like, cool, thank you. But instead it sends you pain. It sends you situations or people that bring up a certain trigger. It sends you dreams, symbols, because it has no other way of communicating with us. So we have to just be really open to listen to what it has to say without judging it. That's the hard part for us humans. We like to judge. Ourselves, mostly.
Yes. Well, we're coming to an end.
Can we allow the sadness?
Yes. But thank you so much for sharing all of this with us and with the listeners, mostly. Especially, I think it's super valid and super important information to know.
We spent too much time together.
So you're twins, but you're not.
We're not.
We finish each other's sentences.
Yes. We do a lot, actually. We will put all your info in the description, how to find you and all of that, how to book in sessions with you, online, offline. She's traveling a lot, but she's once in a while also in Amsterdam. So in the Netherlands, but also in other countries.
And I will be doing in December a 3-day anger alchemy retreat. I am still confirming if it's in Holland or in Germany. I'm getting my venue sorted. But yeah, people can just find me on my Instagram. On my website, you can see obviously like how to book sessions. If you're interested in emotional release or learning it, then at Emotional Releases is our account for the Institute. We have online trainings and in-person retreats, and many of them happening. So yeah, if there's any questions about training and the method as well, then please come to me.
So just out of curiosity, like the you just sold something to me.
I was like, she will talk now. Go for it.
So you're also gonna do probably an in-person retreat in December. You said that, or in Germany, or in...
Yeah, no, and that'll be just for women around the topic of anger.
Cool.
So if you're around in the Netherlands or Germany, wherever it will be, please go there because she will release a lot.
Yeah, and if you're in the USA, then fly over. Like,
yes.
Anywhere, you're welcome.
Anywhere,
So I'll be sharing more about that in the coming few weeks. So.
Yeah.
Cool.
We will definitely share your details. We will probably be at the event in December. Well, to guess. Thank you so much for your time, for being here with us. We really appreciate it.
And also like for sharing your story and your journey with that, because I think that is really important for people also to hear and to understand. Like, yeah. And I don't need to say more about that.
No.
I think,
Thank you, ladies. I appreciate you both so much.
That's it.
That's it.
Cool.
Bye-bye.
Bye.